Chapter 5 The Heroic Goal of Monsters. Aldrich smiled from the hallway. He wore a turquoise tunic, with geometric embroidery running in waves and loops through the cloth. A black velvet cape that reached his ankles billowed behind him as he walked. He was a few years older than Hazel's father, with salt and pepper hair and a beard. She hadn't met him before, and yet he nodded toward her with familiarity. Hazel glanced at Alistair as a range of emotions played over his face. "Thank you all for coming," Aldrich said. "I eagerly anticipate learning more about each of you later. Please, let's sit and hear what Garrow has to say." They sat around the Grim, who waited in the middle of the common area. Hazel sat on the couch Laura had vacated for a large blue armchair. Aldrich joined Hazel. He greeted her with a warm smile. Alistair sighed and rolled his eyes, turning his attention to Garrow. "You all know me, and so I shall inform you of my occupation instead. I have worked several centuries as an ambassador for the Seelie Court, which encompasses the elves and the rest of the well-intentioned Fae. My involvement over the years in human kingdoms has grown from that of an emissary to consultation beyond what the court-appointed philosophers provide. Most recently, I collaborated with the King of Athelion, and together we've developed a plan that's equal parts promising and unusual. We hope the four of you can help test this new program." The shadows cast by the fireplace danced across the room into discernible shapes. Images flitted across the walls as the Grim spoke. Laura and Alistair sat upright, watching the magic display. Levalin stared at Garrow intently as the black dog continued. "I possess the ability to travel into a realm called the Shadow World. Within the darkness, I behold inklings of the future. I want the four of you to spearhead this endeavor, because the shadows identified you as the ideal candidates. I now relinquish the floor to Aldrich, who will present additional information, along with details of the occupation I mentioned to each of you." The shadows relaxed into a lazy flicker as Garrow moved to the side. Aldrich stood and strode to the center of the room, facing them. His pleasant expression was replaced by one of earnest seriousness. "I would first like to thank you for answering Garrow's summons. I know some of you traversed great distances, while others were close. Irrespective of the length of your journeys, you all came. For that, you have my gratitude." He took a deep breath. "I want you to form a unique branch of the military, specifically in law enforcement. In recent years, the city guard has been beleaguered with an increasing number of deadly nocturnal crimes. The guards can handle gang activity and burglary with few problems, but recent incidents have been extreme of late." "How do you mean?" Laura asked. She had resumed a relaxed slouch in her seat with one leg over the arm of her chair. "I mean, it isn't simple human crime anymore. Spellcasters, therianthropes, vampires, fae, daimon, and others create problems that the average soldier is ill-equipped to handle." He held up a hand to stave off protestations. "I'm not saying any entire group is wholly at fault for the crimes of the few. Only the guilty are guilty. What I am saying is when one criminal with considerable power appears, soldiers cannot handle it adequately, which usually results in death or severe injury. The problems have steadily worsened, and so a more proactive measure must be implemented. That proactive measure is you four." "Forgive the interruption," Alistair said, "but isn't there already a division of the military dedicated to such tasks?" "You're right. It would be that division of the military, specifically a subset of the city guards, you would join, at least until you establish yourselves as an independent group. For those of you unaware, by accepting this offer you would become Watchers of the Evenfall Vigil. The Evenfall Vigil handles criminal activity surrounding superhuman phenomena, which may be criminals using magic or powerful races committing crimes. As it currently exists, they are predominantly human, and I have wanted to diversify their ranks for some time. They're the best in the city, but being human comes with drawbacks, not the least of which is predictability. The easier criminals can guess the moves of my soldiers, the more likely my soldiers will end up dead. He sighed heavily. Too many have fallen in recent history. He locked eyes with each of them. All of you would provide some randomness to the movements of the Evenfall Vigil, which will shake nocturnal criminal activity to its core. Your designation would give you autonomy to do what you believe is best, and to investigate independently. How does it benefit us? Lara asked, twirling her hair absently. His lip twitched, as if concealing a smile. You will receive 2 silver merchants per month, which is a little more than double the payment any guard would receive. Hazel's eyebrows lifted. Her parents' modest home cost 16 silver merchants. It was strange to think that in 8 months she could afford to buy her own home. In addition, Aldrich continued, pacing before them, your room and board will be paid for, so the entirety of your salary would mostly be for any extraneous costs. Beyond that, you could submit requests for equipment, training, or anything you might require, and, if the request is deemed necessary, then it shall be granted in full without impacting your remuneration. As time passes and I see the results of what you have done, your pay will increase, as will your authority within the standard ranks of the Evenfall Vigil. Depending on your success, I may grant you actual commanding power over the guards or the spellcasters in my employ, though that would be a matter to discuss in the future. What makes us qualified? Llewellyn asked. Besides being oddities in the human world, I doubt any of us possess training in law enforcement. The vampire could be helpful, and the werewolf girl presumably has some strength, though she seems as likely to commit crimes as she does to prevent them. But what of us? This undead girl has no abilities relevant to combat. I've spent my life away from excitement, so I don't cause an arcane cataclysm that could threaten innocent lives. Placing me in the middle of circumstances where I need to act swiftly could be too much excitement. Why would the king want us working in his city? What do you mean by that? Lara asked, sitting up. What arcane cataclysm? Llewellyn averted his eyes and wrung his hands. Garrow spoke softly. Llewellyn is half dark elf, half warlock. Lara and Alistair recoiled at this information, while Aldrich winced. I hoped to avoid bringing it up, Ambassador, Llewellyn whispered. My lineage is not a source of pride. Be that as it may, Garrow replied loudly. I trust you. I know your limitations and would not have you here if I believed it would be ruinous. Besides, the others need to know so that they can have faith in you as I do. The basis of all healthy relationships is mutual trust. That is what we must build. Hazel remembered stories of warlocks, but each had a hint of whimsy that inclined her to believe the information contained in them was either inaccurate or metaphorical. Tales of these creatures focused on their destructive nature, and typically ended with them destroying themselves. A warlock often seemed like an epithet for an evil spellcaster of great power, though she noticed no malice in him. I have to agree with him regarding qualifications, Hazel remarked quietly. I don't have any special powers or background or knowledge in anything. I returned from the dead, and as amazing as that is, it isn't something I chose. No power of mine resurrected me. I'd just get in the way. Actually, Garrow smiled, you have a special role. You all do. He rose and paced the room as Aldrich returned to his seat. The Grimm stopped before each person, looking them in the eye. Whether you four recognize it, Your abilities in combination make you a deadly force. Alistair has persuasive abilities, excellent hearing, and is a student of the sword. Lara has experience fighting in the arena against numerous enemies and possesses naturally heightened tracking skills and incredible strength. Llewellyn knows much about magic and can use it faster than most. Hazel, his green eyes glittered, can see many hidden things. What's that supposed to mean? Lara asked. She could see me traveling through the shadow world. Only creatures of darkness can enter that realm in order to move from one location to another. Somehow, she saw me there. If she did not see me literally, then the metaphorical act of gazing through the shadows indicates possible precognition. He grinned. The potential usefulness of knowing a crime may happen before it actually does is not lost on us. The Grim paused. That aside, none of you are perfect, and it will take time before you function in anything more than passable fashion. No one expects immediate perfection. I urge you all to be patient with yourselves and with each other. Strive to work together as a team. You may all be individually strong, but if you use your powers in concert, you may well be unstoppable. I'm also part of this group, to an extent, but my involvement is necessarily minimal. I have many responsibilities as an ambassador and cannot legally be employed by a human kingdom. Nonetheless, I remain one of the chief overseers of this project. It's also worthwhile to note that while this initiative only currently affects this kingdom, it was also approved by the Sealy Court and the King of the Nosferatu. In other words, your jurisdiction extends into both territories, though your responsibilities will, for now, be contained to Coravain alone. Lara sighed loudly. Okay, I know I already asked this, but what's in it for me? I mean, the pay isn't exactly what I'm looking for. I could make just as much or more in the ring. For you, Lara, Garrow said, a chance to do something meaningful with your life. A chance to be part of a greater community. A chance to meet and overcome challenges worth your time. Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that. Thanks for the chances, though. I'd prefer to make the same amount fighting in the ring, where I'm less likely to die horribly. Lara directed this statement toward Llewellyn as she stood and walked toward the stairs. Wait! Aldrich exclaimed. You're just going to walk out? That's the plan. Aldrich bit his lip and looked to the side, considering. A slow smile spread across his face. You make bets in Trelland, don't you? Her hand rested on the rail, but she paused. Yeah? So? I have a wager for you. Garrow cocked his head at Aldrich. How much money do you make in half a year? Aldrich asked. Well, she said, gazing at the ceiling. Each match, I usually make 4 silver commons, which I would then bet on myself to make 8. 2 fights a week means 16 silver commons each week. Then 4 weeks in a month, and 6 months and half a year, which would bring the total to... She scrunched her nose, doing the mental math. 384 silver commons, Alistair said almost immediately. Hazel's eyes widened. Her parents' house cost less than half that amount. Aldrich nodded. Very well. Besides your weekly salary, I will make a bet with you. If by the end of the 6 months you work here, you choose to leave because the work isn't for you, then I will compensate you with approximately double your earnings for that time period, a full 7 nobles. If by that time you choose to stay, then I will still pay the amount you would have made in the arena. 3 silver nobles, 8 silver merchants, and 4 silver commons. She raised an eyebrow. If you're trying to get me to stay permanently, you know that bet actually incentivizes me quitting in 6 months, right? He shrugged. You can either leave now or leave later. If you truly have no interest in the group by then, you'll leave wealthy. If you choose to stay, it will be due to your appreciation for this work. Plus, you'll still get that pleasant bonus of your winnings to lessen the disappointment of losing out on double that amount. Even if you lose the bet, you essentially win. Lara hesitated. She crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, fighting some internal battle. Even if that was true, who are you to throw money like a witch throws hexes? Alistair rubbed the bridge of his nose. He's the king of Athelion. Lara's jaw dropped, and Hazel's eyebrows raised. The king was sitting beside her just a moment ago, and she didn't realize it. This situation got even stranger. Aldrich scowled. Did you have to end the fun so quickly, Alistair? The vampire crossed his arms. I think you've had quite enough fun for one evening, Your Majesty. Aldrich shrugged. What about the rest of you? Will you join this endeavor? Part of the reason for my now ruined anonymity was to provide you the chance to unite without feeling you are making the decision under duress. This is your choice, though I sincerely hope you accept. The room was quiet as they contemplated the offer. My parents, Hazel finally said. Do they know how dangerous this is? At a certain point, Miss Enda, we must decide whether we will do what we wish or what others wish of us, Garrow said softly. Will you make your decisions or let others make them for you? Hazel gazed at her fern-green hands. She didn't need to ask for the ages of those around her. She knew she was the youngest. What role could she have to play in the fate of Coravain? Not half a year ago, she ran barefoot with her friends through the nearby woods without a care, but now she'd somehow become important? She hadn't wished to die, but she hadn't asked to be brought back either. This didn't upset her, but she was aware how passive her role was since she'd returned from the dead. She was caught in a stream of others making choices for her that she couldn't escape. It's not our circumstances which define us, the Grim continued, almost like he was reading her mind, but what we choose to do when we are placed in them. The statement resonated through the room as the group pondered what decision to make. I'll do it, Hazel said in her typically soft voice. Ever since I was resurrected, I haven't felt right. I haven't felt much of anything, really. But this might change that. Until now, my choices have been made for me. This time, I choose to join the Evenfall Vigil. The rest appeared visibly surprised, not only that she spoke, but that such a quiet girl should join so quickly. It was only Aldrich and Garrow who looked pleased rather than astonished. Alistair glanced to the side, clenching both fists. A moment later, he relaxed his hands and smiled at Hazel. I can't very well let a fellow bibliophile undertake such a dangerous occupation alone. I guess I'm in as well. Despite that, Lara said, I'll join too. You can only win so many fights before the competition gets monotonous. Maybe this'll shake things up a bit. Plus, she grinned wolfishly at Aldrich, I have a bet to win. Garrow turned to Llewellyn, who was deep in thought, leaning with both elbows on his knees, his nose and chin resting on his hands joined with interlocking fingers, staring at a fixed point somewhere in front of him. This will kill one or all of us, he stated softly. He was silent for several moments. I think this may ruin me. Is the cause really so important, Garrow? The room was quiet, and the building energy disappeared. Garrow gazed kindly at Llewellyn. It is. Llewellyn closed his eyes and heaved a heavy sigh. Then I, too, will join, even though it seems like a terrible idea that will end in utter disaster. I can tell he's going to be fun to work with, Lara muttered. I'm elated that you have all agreed to help, Aldrich said, not waiting to see if Llewellyn would respond to Lara. Your exceptional talents will benefit this city greatly. Perhaps you could go over the specifics of the contract we have? Alistair said. What precisely will we be doing? In the first place, Aldrich said, rising from his seat, I should give you these. He drew from his pocket several small, brightly polished steel badges. Each badge had emblazoned on it the seal of the Kingdom of Athelion, a fox sejeant with a spindle of yarn above it, surrounded by grape leaves. Outside this seal on one side was a star, and on the other side the moon Progon and Crescent, cradling the smaller full moon, Kythus. Above the images it read, Evenfall Vigil, and below it was the motto of the guards, Vigilant in Darkness. These are your official marks of service, Aldrich continued. Watchers possess a higher rank than the normal guard, and so you will be capable of issuing basic orders in case of an emergency. In the next couple of weeks, we will inform the guards of these changes. I would advise against using these until you meet your superior officer, however, as they still need to be magically infused and linked to each of you. My expectations are simple. There are many cases available which could benefit from your expertise. Frankly, any improvement is improvement enough. I suspect, despite your individual talents, you will need time before you can properly work as a team. With that in mind, I have a matter that has been increasingly problematic in recent months. Somewhere in the city, there is an alchemist, or alchemists, who have been creating illegal potions that turn average criminals into rampaging monsters. We've worked to discover the root of these deals, but every time the guards get close, they reach a dead end. Those who use the compounds lack coherence for some time after, and their memories are significantly impaired. We suspect this alchemist is using these individuals as test subjects, or trying something bigger. Okay, Lara said, but I'm pretty sure none of us are detectives or anything. What makes you think we'll succeed where the guards failed? I have a couple of reasons, Aldrich said. First, your enhanced physical attributes should allow you to apprehend any suspects before they do significant harm. Second, you each have specific gifts normal humans do not, which might provide an edge to discovering the whereabouts of the alchemist. Because of your enhanced senses and skills, you may find the users of this potion before they take it, and thus prevent them from destroying their own memories, which could provide the clues to their supplier. While I do have several investigators on this case, they are ill-equipped to deal with many magic-related crimes, and the time it takes to have a spellcaster appear to help often allows the trail to disappear before sufficient headway can be made. Having a pure team of spellcasters has also been unsuccessful. Alistair nodded. That's understandable. Spellcasters require time and focus to use magic, whereas guards can act immediately but ineffectively. An enhanced human could quickly subdue the guards and rush the spellcaster, which could cause spells to go awry, unless the spellcaster is trained in combative magic. Aldrich stroked his beard. Precisely. Since the War of the Night ended, most spellcasters are inadequately trained for combat. A clattering of pans in a room nearby startled the group. This was followed by a high-pitched gurgling voice, which didn't sound like it was speaking in common Imperial. What was that? Lara bolted upright, looking at Garrow. Ah, yes, Garrow said, as if remembering something. I haven't introduced you to your chef yet. All four responded in unison. Chef? Garrow sat up. Yes, your resident chef and steward. If this is to be your home, you must have a housekeeper. He's a little unusual, but he makes excellent desserts, and is fastidious in his more domestic chores. The Grim turned in the voice's direction. Charlie, come here for a minute. The members of the team have finally arrived, and I want to introduce you. A light knocking noise was heard, but no one was seen until the source arrived in front of the group, becoming visible. The creature before them was short, no taller than 3 feet, and had dark orange skin. Its body was lanky, which made its wide face stand out more on its beanpole-thin torso. A wide mouth spread in a nervous smile, with scores of small, sharp teeth, and a minuscule nose. Large, yellow eyes resembling a cat's darted between them, while its small and pointed ears twitched. It walked slightly hunched over, which highlighted the fact that its arms were almost the same length as its legs. Each hand possessed 4 muscular but thin fingers, upon each of which was a long, sharp black talon. Finally, completing the creature's appearance was a brown tunic, iron boots, and a simple red cap on its head. Lavalin, Lara, and Alistair all jumped at the appearance of this creature. A red cap! Lavalin exclaimed, holding his hands before him as purple motes of light buzzed like agitated wasps between his fingers. Are you insane? What is a red cap doing here? This, Garrow said, striding over to the creature, is Charlie. Be nice to him, he's sensitive. His race is typically too dangerous to approach, but since he was discovered by brownies at an early age, he was raised to be an immaculate housekeeper. He's actually quite gifted, though his appearance and his reputation, and the reputation of his race, throw most people into a bit of a panic. But believe me, he's trustworthy and an excellent chef. Redcap as a housekeeper, Lara muttered, crossing her arms. Now I've seen everything. Charlie hissed, removing his cap deferentially, revealing his hairless head. Please to meet you. I will do the best job to help you. Ah, Hazel cooed. The earnest expression on the face of the little demented creature before her, and his stuttering attempt to communicate made him oddly adorable. Thank you. I hope we can be friends. The red cap grinned literally from ear to ear, before pointing one claw at his chest. Ow, Charlie. Then pointing at Hazel. You? I'm Hazel. Hazel. Yes. Be friends. What? What do you like? Eat. I like chocolate. Chocolate? His yellow eyes twinkled. I'll make. Charlie instantly disappeared, and the sounds of bustling in the kitchen resumed. It appears he's taken a liking to you, Hazel, Aldrich remarked with a chuckle. He's so cute, Hazel replied with a smile. I wouldn't advise getting close to him, Lavalin said, frowning. Redcaps dye their hats with human blood. Well, that's normally true, Garrow said. It turns out the need to dye their caps red consistently is rooted in a severe compulsion. Since he was raised from infancy by an extremely peaceful race, he only recently started dyeing his cap red. The red is a combination of cherries, cranberries, and pomegranate, if I'm not mistaken. His compulsion is not as severe as most, and relatively harmless. Charlie sometimes loses his temper, but only under extreme duress. He gets depressed faster than he gets angered. Please appreciate his work and don't judge him too harshly because of his species. The red cap reappeared with a silver platter laden with a variety of chocolate desserts, ranging from truffles and cake to muffins and brownies. He proffered the tray to Hazel, who took a small muffin from the stack. Thank you, Charlie. Well, welcome, he replied. Have rest? Oh, Hazel said. I couldn't possibly eat all this. But perhaps everyone else might want some? Charlie looked around the room and held the tray aloft tentatively. Well, want some? Why not? Lara shrugged, but reached over cautiously to snatch a handful of truffles and a brownie. I'm sitting with a warlock, so I guess dessert is the least of my worries. I suppose it would be rude not to try some, Alistair said, taking a cookie. Thank you, Charlie. Well, welcome. Charlie turned to Llewellyn. You want? Llewellyn rolled his eyes and grabbed the chocolate truffle. I hope this doesn't kill me. The King of Ithelion helped himself to a large slice of cake. The Grim refused with a smile. I'm afraid chocolate doesn't agree with dogs, even of the ghostly fey variety. Each person nibbled their food before looking up in astonishment. Llewellyn gasped. It's good. You actually made this? Yes, I'll make on own. Llewellyn's eyes widened as he stared at the red cap. Incredible. Here, come back with that tray. I don't think I've tasted a dessert this good in Eliara before. You've outdone any light elf I've encountered. Charlie grinned wider and puffed out his chest with pride. The others had similar praise. The entire experience had, in some ways, helped relieve the tension between the new members of the Evenfall Vigil. The uncertainty before the arrival of the Red Cap had dissipated. Charlie, Alistair said, enjoying his second cookie, how did you make these so quickly? Hazel requested chocolate, and you prepared these desserts in moments. Just the best chef. The creature's grin took on a mischievous curl. Charlie is not above teasing, Garrow said. I told him chocolate is a beloved dessert most here would enjoy. He did make everything, he just did so in advance and excess. Charlie made a farting noise with his lips. Fun spoiler. Hazel, Llewellyn said, ignoring the conversation. Garrow mentioned you've been having precognitive dreams. Is that true? You mean dreams of the future? Hazel asked. Yes. Is that accurate? Well, sort of. They've been little dreams. Dreams of things like a carriage breaking down a few streets from my home, or dreaming that my mother gave me a dozen daisies, and then the next day receiving them as a gift. It isn't every night, and usually the dreams are vague. I can't control them. Llewellyn nodded intently. That's because you haven't learned how. Her eyebrows rose. You can learn that? Of course. Llewellyn shifted in his seat, still looking at her. Dreams are the first step in seeing visions of the future. I have trained in the art of farsight, and the principles are essentially identical. For you to harness your natural foresight abilities may take you only a year or so. Can you teach me? The prospect of learning to control her dreams and understanding the future excited the smallest spark within her. Me? Llewellyn exclaimed with arched eyebrows, his eyes searching the room. I'm sure you could find a better teacher. Do you mean you won't teach me? Oh, well, he hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. No, not exactly. I just think you could find someone better. Anyone better. I disagree, Hazel replied. You know how to use farsight, which you say is similar. I also don't know anyone else who could teach me. I'm not that far removed from being a total stranger. Yes, but we'll work together, she said, staring into his deep red eyes. So this might help build that bond. Of course, if you don't want to, I understand. I don't want to burden you. Llewellyn searched the room with his eyes before shaking his head. No, it's not that at all. I can instruct you. It would also give me a chance to examine you further. I've never heard of a revenant or zombie capable of foreseeing the future, though liches and draugr sometimes can. Perhaps working closely with you will help me better understand what you are. If you find out, please tell me, Hazel replied. I'd like to know what sort of thing I am. The most important thing, Aldrich interjected, is who you are, not what you are. You're Hazel. So long as there's that, you have everything you need. Though I will let you know if my sorcerers extract any additional information from Hickory Alkirk that could prove useful. I was wondering about that, Hazel said with a thoughtful frown. When can I see Hickory? My parents were told contact between us wouldn't happen soon, but I want to talk to him at some point. There are things I want to say that I haven't been able to. Aldrich hesitated. Well, at present it's difficult to say when you'll be able to meet with him, since we understand so little about how he revived you. I understand your desire for closure surrounding this entire ordeal, though. We'll eventually find some way for you to say your piece without the potential for a trap spell. I see, Hazel replied. It was mildly disappointing, but expected. Llewellyn studied her for a moment. It's possible that by improving your abilities you may discover what you are. That may lead to an understanding of the magic the spellcaster used to revive you. Do you really think so? He shrugged. It's a possibility. I don't think it's likely, but there are a few disadvantages to trying. There it is. Lara jumped in. That famous dark elf optimism I've heard so much about. Llewellyn shot her a steely glance through narrowed eyes. You know, you're much more charming with a sphere of Elkarin over your head. Lara winked. Trust me, I don't need to talk to be aggravating. I believe it. I just realized something, Alistair said. How are we supposed to start? Do we simply find and arrest people, or do we need special training? Garrow smiled. I think it may be best for you to learn how to swim by jumping in the water. You will work under the jurisdiction of the Evenfall Vigil, and they'll fill you in on the basic laws. They know not to waste your time with commonplace crimes. As cases arise, a messenger will be sent here to gather you and escort you to the location. I expect your first few cases will be a little challenging, but I have confidence you'll learn. He paused. Eventually. Your faith in us is overwhelming, Lara said, rolling her eyes. When do we begin, Ambassador? Alistair asked. Half a week from today, on the 1st of Olimia. This will be a demanding occupation that requires quick response times. Consequently, you will all live here. Your rooms are furnished and equipped with everything you might need. If there is anything lacking, you may tell me or King Aldrich, and we will see if we can reasonably accommodate your request. Questions? Hazel raised her hand. The Grim chuckled. Hazel, this isn't a school assembly. What's your question? What about the books? What about the books? Can we use the books in the library? Yes, you may. In fact, I should mention this library essentially belongs to all of you. It was originally going to be torn down before I convinced His Majesty to procure it from the university. We've outfitted it to be as useful as possible, but if you dislike something, it's yours to alter as you wish. Keep in mind, we don't have unlimited funds. Any damage you cause, you will need to pay for or live with. Lara whistled. Think of the crazy parties we could throw. Can you take anything seriously? Alistair asked. Not if I can help it. I think it might be time to separate, Aldrich said, rising to his feet. Hazel, don't you live on the other side of the city? I'll take you in my carriage. Thank you, Your Majesty, but I wouldn't want to impose. Aldrich smiled. No imposition at all. In fact, I would welcome your company. Before you adjourn to your respective abodes, Garrow said, I would like to leave you with a parting thought. In a land predominantly composed of ordinary humans, you are a shield in the darkness. I do not know if the city will receive you kindly at first, for the unfamiliar and powerful are always frightening. As you learn and grow, so will this city. If the people view you now as monsters, realize the heights you will one day reach when they laud you as heroes. You may scoff if you wish, but I already see each of you destined for greatness. Lara rolled her eyes. Did your Shadow Realm thing tell you that? You might want to check again. Garrow shook his head. No, it was nothing I witnessed in the Shadow World. It's simply what I see in all of you. With that, Aldrich and Hazel bade the rest farewell. They exited into the early evening to Aldrich's coach. The carriage lacked the flair of royalty one might expect, but upon closer inspection was made of higher quality materials than average. Aldrich helped Hazel into the coach box before getting in himself and sitting across from her. I've never ridden in a coach before, Hazel said, looking around. This is a smaller one. I use this when I don't want to draw too much attention. The fortunate thing about riding in a coach is it allows for some privacy. It should be around 20 minutes before we arrive at your house. I wanted to talk with you privately, and this seemed like an excellent opportunity. He knocked twice on the side of the coach, and they were soon moving. She studied the king. He was earnest, but something troubled him. What do you want to discuss? Are your parents religious by chance? Hazel thought for a moment. Yes, but not fervently. We mostly follow the cults of Americanth and Melantros, though my father makes offerings to Tavik before big jobs. Why? He looked out the window. What do you know about the cult of Semelemy? I've heard they handle funerals in the city, but I don't know much else. That's understandable. Normally, one doesn't hear much about them unless someone close has died. The cult of Semelemy is surprisingly popular, considering she's a chaos god and goddess of death. Her priests are known for embalming the dead and handling all the ceremonies surrounding funerals. It's not simply a law of ours that makes them responsible. They are extremely competent in their work and are more respected because of the sacred nature with which they regard their occupation. He glanced at her. In fact, they worked with your body when you died. Really? I didn't know that. She searched his eyes. Why are you telling me this? Aldrich frowned and his gaze became distant. The cult's duties, as undertakers, only encompass one aspect of the group's work. A much larger part of their role involves routing out and destroying necromancers and their creations. They view the undead as unholy monstrosities that break the holy laws of Semelemy. Even revenants, when summoned under legal circumstances, are sought after and eliminated where possible. He hesitated. They see it as their extrajudicial duty beyond any government's ability to grant or forbid. Hazel read his worried expression. She felt nothing. They want to kill me. Well, not exactly. Not yet. I've been doing my best to keep what happened to you a secret. Unfortunately, even a king has his limitations. I could have kept you a secret far longer if I detained you indefinitely, but your parents deserve to know, and you deserve to have a normal life. Instead, I've sworn both my personal mages and the guards who found you to silence. I've explained the situation to your parents, but there's only so much they can do. News gets out. At present, word has spread slowly, but rumors are gaining traction. I will need to meet with the High Priestess of Smelame soon. He leaned toward her. Hazel, my powers are limited. You don't yet understand what your return from death has done, or how it will change the world. Athelion is a strong nation, but authority greater than mine will eventually come for you. The Inquisition supersedes my power in undead matters. I can placate them and slow them down, but the further we go, the harder it will be to protect you from the cult of Semelemy and the Inquisition of the Council of Archmages. I'm not afraid. He blinked. What? If they come for me and I need to go, then I will. You've protected me more than I deserve. You've helped me and my family to a considerable degree, and for no personal gain. Thank you. I know you'll continue to do your best. Ever since I returned, I noticed my emotions are far from what they were. Fear, joy, pain. They're all so distant. I'm not afraid of the future, but I'm grateful for your concern. You are a brave girl, Hazel. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I will continue to do my best to quell rumors, but I don't want you to be shocked if people accost you when they learn of your revival. Do you really think my return will change the world that much? You are the first of your kind. It takes 100 years to create a sentient lich, and you've long outlasted the lifespan of a revenant. Some may see you as some unique draugr, but others may view you as the answer to immortality. Others may find ways of using your power for personal gain. From what I know about magic, you're a complete mystery. Even if it's possible to replicate what happened to you, no one will rest until they're certain. Will my parents be okay? I think so. They weren't responsible for what happened and are otherwise ordinary people. The only harm which could befall them would be the secondary pain of seeing you hurt. That's good. I was worried about them. Aldrich smiled kindly. I'll do my best to keep them safe. No one will do anything without my permission first. He grew serious again. I mention this not to scare you, but to help you make an informed decision. I could order you to stay at the castle for your protection, but you would lose your freedom. By letting you walk free, you may eventually lose your liberty to others who do not have your best interests in mind. I wish to protect you, but that may hurt you in the end. That's why I leave the decision to you. If you feel you're in danger, you can ask for my immediate intervention. If you need to escape, even out of Coravain, I will arrange for you and your family to disappear to a place where you'll be safe. She smiled. He was a kind man. He offered himself as a servant despite being a king. Your Majesty, thank you. I'll take your words to heart. I hardly know what I'm doing, but becoming a watcher of the Evenfall Vigil seems like the right choice. If my opinion changes, I'll let you know. Their journey continued for a short while, the conversation shifting to lighter topics. The king provided an entertaining discussion, though the gravity of previous matters was not lost on Hazel. Even as they parted ways, she mused on what he said. As she entered into her room, she considered her surroundings. Her bedroom was filled with the ghost of who she was. A stuffed bunny, faded from age and the love of a young Hazel, slumped on her pillow. A small painting she made 2 years ago when she aspired to be an artist hung above her bed. She'd been so proud of how she shaded each leaf and apple on the tree. She gazed at the giant killing stone, as she and her friends called it. Her friend Tommy had tripped over the rock, then, in frustration, kicked it, which caused him pain and moved it not an inch. When he hoisted it up, a large centipede had crawled from under it and over his hand, causing him to drop the stone, which landed on his other foot. Hazel and Claire had laughed until they cried. From then on, the two girls jokingly worshipped the stone as a giant killer, and each time Hazel left her room, she would laugh and rub its surface for luck. Most recently, her mother had given her daisies, which drooped despite the water they were in. A small collection of petals surrounded the earthenware vase where it stood, withering by the window. She remembered smiling and reading books, tending flowers she'd gotten for her birthday, and having sleepovers with her best friend. All these alien memories and feelings she once held dear echoed in her mind. She had died. She had died in such a stupid, meaningless way. She wasn't angered by it, but she knew she'd put her parents through profound pain by being careless. She couldn't die like that again. Her parents wouldn't relive the pain of losing her without some higher purpose. She wouldn't die by slipping out of a tree, nor would she wilt away like the flowers on her windowsill. If I'm going to survive, I need to get stronger, she thought. I need to know who I am and what I can do. I need Llewellyn to help me.